This episode of the Old Dogs REI Network is brought to you by Mino Studio.
In a world where jobs are how most people make money, one man, one desire, one challenge dares to break the mold. Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network, where we don't work for money. Money works for us. Coming soon. Viewer discretion advised.
Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network, where cash flow is king. Real estate investing, the means, so you can enjoy your retirement dreams. This is the show where we cut right to the chase. No sales pitch, no long monologues, just simple how-to real estate investing advice, so you can earn the passive income you need to enjoy your retirement today. And now, your host and chief old dog, Bill Manacero.
Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network. I'm your host, Bill Manacero, and this is a show where 50-plussers and anyone else who wants to join us get solid, no sales pitch real estate investing advice to help generate real cash flow. This podcast airs twice weekly on Mondays and Fridays, and if you aren't already a subscriber, go to iTunes or Apple Podcast, type in Old Dogs, spelled D-A-W-G-S, find our podcast, and subscribe. Well, we have a great show for you today. We have a gentleman who is not only a very experienced real estate investor, but he's also an expert in the self-directed IRA area. And I'm really interested in this because we just have not covered it that much in this show. And I think that this is going to be a great presentation. His name is Carl Fischer, and he is a founder of Cama Self-Directed IRA, also known as CamaPlan, headquartered in Ambler, Pennsylvania. He is also an active real estate investor and third-generation real estate developer, having managed over $20 million in real estate transactions. His real estate investments include commercial and residential properties, including real property, notes, and mortgages, and have his various properties in states ranging from Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, Florida, North Carolina, and Wisconsin. He has been able to increase his personal net worth and control many endeavors utilizing self-direction tools. Carl began his investing career in the 1970s when he was employed as a rocket scientist at Kennedy Space Center in Cape Canaveral, Florida, and he's a graduate of Cornell University. Well, Carl, welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network.
Thanks a lot, Bill. I really appreciate you having me on today.
Wow, this is a thrill for me, because we were talking off air there, and a lot of people say, hey, it doesn't take a rocket scientist, but I guess with you it would. Anything that is involved with either real estate or self-directed IRAs here, it sounds like that's definitely your new focus in life.
No, for sure.
That's great. Well, I'd like to hear your story. Yeah.
So when I started in this real estate business, I grew up around it. My mom and my dad were in it, and their moms and their dads were in real estate. So I didn't know anything new, that much about it. But I did like launching rockets, so I just did real estate on the side. But I'll tell you one thing: you can make a lot more money and free up a lot more time in real estate than you can in launching rockets. But I think you have more fun launching rockets than you do in real estate. So I feel very fortunate that I could do both, to subsidize my fun at a job that I made money at. So I thought that was great.
Oh, that's fantastic. Now, did you just want to get involved with real estate just as sort of a side investment, or were you thinking, well, I want to eventually do this full time?
Well, first of all, I was kind of doing it. I was the guy who, when we were in college, I was the guy who would go rent the house, that we were going to ski in, or the chalet up on the mountain in Vermont, and then put 10 guys together to go up there and pay for it. So from learning, just being around real estate, you learned a lot about it. And before I graduated college, I was looking at property, in upstate New York. And when I went to launching rockets at Kennedy Space Center, I started looking for property again. I did construction when I was in high school, and I was making 2 or 3 times what the people working at McDonald's and the malls were making. So I liked that. Plus, I learned a lot. And that's probably where I wanted to, where I got my engineering background from, was doing that. And then I said, well, I can do these drawings and probably do them better. So that's, when I went to Cornell, that's where I kind of ended up was some architecture, engineering, structural engineering. And so I always thought I'd be doing real estate at some point in time. But when I lost my summer vacation, when I had a job, that was a telling point in my life. And I said, I've got to do something else, because I got to have a summer vacation. This 2 weeks on the job just wasn't cutting it for me. So I knew I needed to have additional income. And obviously I fell back on what, my dad had taught me. When I was 10 years old, I was going into the post office and, opening up the mailbox and grabbing the checks, and then opening up the envelopes and putting the checks in a pile. And later I would even be making out the deposits for them. I learned early.
Wow, you really were learning. Yeah. But he was a developer, a ground up type developments, but was he also a landlord too?
Oh, no, he was a landlord too. He basically started out as a landlord, and and he was a painter, and his mother was a landlord, but he moved to Florida. I think she may have lent him some money to buy a place. And my mom also bought a place. And, at the dinner table, they had 2 different philosophies of managing a place. My mother would get to know the people in there and be friends with them. And my dad was the complete opposite and said, I don't want to, run into these people in the grocery stores, et cetera, because they're going to be complaining about something in their apartment, et cetera. So I got to listen to it. And obviously I helped both of them out. I remember cutting the grass and fixing the septic tanks, on holidays. But I didn't know any better, So that's how I got into it, and I thought it was good. And my dad would take us to the Jersey Shore in the summertime for 2 or 3 months, and I didn't know that wasn't normal for a lot of people, until I was told I only had 2 weeks summer vacation.
Wow!
When I first got my job, at Kennedy Space Center.
That's pretty good. Were you living in New York at that time, or whereabouts were you guys living?
Well, no. When I graduated Cornell, I stopped at a couple places on my way back to Florida. I grew up in Florida. My mom and dad moved to Fort Lauderdale when I was 2 years old, so I grew up in Fort Lauderdale. Was born in New Jersey and then went back to school in New York. So I was on my way back down, and I stopped at Kennedy Space Center and, ended up working there. I thought it was great. The shuttle program was 1.5 years away from launch, so they said it was actually about 3.5. But I got to work on the R&D of the shuttle program and meet a lot of the astronauts, and, that was great. And meanwhile, I built a house when I was there, bought some property next to it. And then just kept buying properties and building stuff and renting things for additional income.
So, when you started off, it sounds like you're more on the residential side. But as I look at your bio here, you've got the commercial, you've got notes and mortgages. You're in a lot of different asset classes, which is fascinating.
Yeah, well, I did start off in residential. I was familiar with residential, and what happened is I had a mortgage broker business at one point with a partner, and we needed office space, so I was the one tagged to go rent some office space. So I went looking around for office space, and when I looked at what they were asking for the rent, I could buy the building and basically rent for free with the income that the other tenants would be paying. So that was my first commercial building. I said, well, all right, we'll rent the building. I mean, we'll buy the building and, rent it out and control it. And then I found out I liked that better. For the most part, the tenants would take care of their own repairs. They didn't call you. There wasn't a washer or a dryer or a garbage disposal that you had to work with. They were more responsible, and a lot of it I learned about triple net rent at that point as well. So I just I jumped all over the commercial and said, well, geez, I wonder why we didn't do this, more. Office space is much better than residential, in my opinion.
Right.
But then after I had it, I had a newspaper company in there for, I think 8 or 9 years, but you saw what happened to newspapers. So they basically folded. And, it takes a little bit longer to rent a commercial space, and you have different build outs, et cetera. So I just think real estate is a good way to make money and free up your time because it's a lot like interest. It works 24/7, 365 days a year. And, nobody questions it. So whether I'm working at another job launching rockets, or I'm surfing on the beach, or I'm fishing offshore, that interest on a note is accumulating, and I get a check once a month, and same with the rent. And I basically got into notes because of one of my friends, Dave Van Horn, asked me one day, would you rather a rent check or a mortgage payment each month coming in the mail? And I had to think about it, and he said, and at my age, I want a mortgage because I don't have, tenants, toilets, or trash associated with it. And last time a toilet overflowed, when was the mortgage company or the bank called? So he liked that part of it. But, the other side of it is you don't get the appreciation on the property when it appreciates. And you don't get a lot of the write-offs associated with it. So there's pros and cons to it, and I thought that I should have both of them. And, if I had to take back a property, I'm not afraid to. I just put it in the portfolio. So the notes are a little bit easier to administer than the real estate, but they both produce cash flow.
Yeah, and that's certainly, at least at my age here, that's our primary focus here. Is
exactly.
Cash flow. Just trying to get that steady funds coming in. That's great. Well, somewhere in there you discovered self-directed accounts, and can you tell me sort of how that happened?
Sure. My father died, and he was land rich, cash poor. He had a note that I didn't know about that had defaulted and was at a 28% default rate, and I needed to pay it off. So I put an ad in the newspaper in the early 90s and asked for anybody to lend money, and they said sure. And I took one of the pieces of property my dad had and put it up. And when I looked at it, it was money from an IRA. And I go, well, this is very interesting. So after I, got the affairs in order, I went back and tried to learn a little bit about the IRA, and it was a very esoteric endeavor, and only a few people knew about it. I called the IRS. I called the bank that did this. I tried reaching the guy that gave me the loan, but no information came from him. And thank God the internet was invented, and I started looking on there, and I started finding more and more information about it. And when I found out that you could do real estate tax-free, or tax deferred, I I couldn't believe it, and I could lend money out of my IRA or 401k, and that would be tax free versus paying the taxes on the interest that you'd make on those notes. So all of that was very appealing to me. So I looked at other people that were doing it, and there weren't any books on it. There weren't any articles on it. So it was very, it made me pause. I'm very conservative. And I looked around and I talked to my accountants, my attorneys, everybody in my network, bankers, and they all said, yeah, I don't know about that. And other people, I've heard them lose their money. So basically, I lent some money to one of my friends, and I transferred the money over to the self-directed IRA company. And once it got there, I got it back out like within 3 or 4 days. And I said, well, that worked. They didn't run away with my money. And my friend had it and was building a bay on his electrical shop. And I said, oh, that works. And then, 9 months later, he pays it back. I get a 5498 and a 1099 goes to my IRA, and I don't have to pay any taxes on it. I show it to my accountant, and he goes, oh, yeah, this is fine. But, it took me 2 years to look at it and review it because I'm one of these people that if it's too good to be true, it probably isn't. So I was looking for the downfall of it, and, and it was around since the late 70s. And I'm kind of wondering why my mom and dad didn't know about it since they had been in it, and nobody else that I knew of. So I kind of haphazardly found it. And that's how I got into it. I still had a pretty big circle. I'm one of 12 kids, the oldest. So wow. My family and working at the Space Center and my network was big, and other people had asked me if it works out, let me know. I'd like to do it too. So I just started talking to them and started doing more and more of them. And then they said, well, why don't you just open up your own company? We trust you more. So that's how CamaPlan was founded. My sister graduated from Villanova University, and she was good in the software associated with money and accounting and trust accounting. So she does the back office, and she said I was in charge of sales, but sales is more educating people on it versus actually selling it, because people either like it or they don't, and you don't have to force anybody to do it. If they like it, they're going to come and ask you questions. And if they're not interested, they'll put it in the back of their mind and come to you later when they're paying more taxes, hopefully.
Now, usually, I remember when I first heard about IRA accounts, it was, the banks that managed them, and the banks would pay you whatever the prevailing sort of rate was at that time. It wasn't necessarily all that high. Now, with your own company, were you able to offer a different return, or did you have to link up with other investment vehicles or banks to manage that?
Well, basically, when we say self-directed, it is self-directed. It's not like a self-directed account at, Fidelity or Vanguard or Merrill. You can actually invest in anything that you want. And we don't manage the money at all. People pick their own investments. If they want to invest in real estate, they have to find the real estate. If they want to invest, in a property or give out mortgages, they have to find the people to borrow that money. I mean, obviously, it's easier to find people to borrow money than it is to find people to lend it. But think about it. The bank takes your money in today, pays you 0.1%, and then they'll lend it out, giving you a CD or whatever. They'll lend it out at 3 or 4%. So they're making, 4% on that money. Or 3.9% on that money. So this is a way that you can take your money that you'd be putting in a CD at less than 1% and put it out there at, 4, 5, 6. There's even, 8 and 10 and 12, depending on what they're investing in and how long they're going to have the money. So, once you understand that there's another scenario out there, and to me, like I said in the beginning, I'm very conservative and I'm risk adverse. So I like it when I can put a mortgage on a house, that's worth $100,000, and I have a loan to value of 50% or less. So things like that just make me feel better than having it in a Wachovia stock that was $37 in 2009 on Friday and 10 cents on Monday. So that's where I'm using my real estate, but I'm biased towards real estate because I grew up around it, right? And I'm biased towards tax-free.
Right. Now, how does that work though? Let's say, for example, somebody says, "Yeah, I like the whole idea of self-directed, but I have a limit on how much money I can put in that account, right? For a typical IRA, it'd be like 6,000 or 6,500. I don't know what it would be today, but
well, for your age, it'd be 7,000.
Okay.
For people under 50, it would be 6,000.
Okay, gotcha. But even if you put that much in there, that's barely enough to. I mean, I don't think you could even put a down payment on a home for that if you're going to purchase a home. How do you, do you have to wait, each year to build it up to a point where you have enough to be able to invest?
Well, a lot of people, will take their 401ks when they separate from their jobs or their IRAs. You can put up to 67,000 in a 401k today, and you can do the same in a SEP IRA or a simple IRA. And you can also put it into a traditional and Roth like you're talking about. So if you put 66,000 in your 401k and then put, another 7,000 in your IRA, that way you're up to 72,000. But even if you don't, we have a way that you can use the little bits of money. Like your IRA can also go get a non-recourse loan. We've seen people buy subject to property with their IRAs with a little bit of money.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah. So, it's the other one is if you find an owner financing, a lot of times they'll take less of a down payment because they know the property, and if you don't pay them, they're going to take it back, and they know how much you're going to make. So there's a lot. You can partner with other people with that. You can use wrap mortgages, and that's probably strategies we can use for another interview on another day. But we have and I'll send it to you, Bill, if you shoot me an email, if I don't forget, 20 ways that you can take a little IRA and build it up.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I would love to maybe make that available to our listeners if you could arrange that. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, if they can go to our website, it's 20 ways to invest with a small IRA, or just shoot an email to info@CamaPlan. But yeah, go to CamaPlan.com, and under resources, I think you can just download it. And if not, call the office and we'll email it to you.
Great. Excellent.
Anything else I talk about today for that too? We have a lot of free stuff on our website. We're big on education, and we want all our clients to be educated, because if they lose money, they don't like self-direction, and we want them to like it, and we want them to invest in things they know and understand.
Gotcha. Now, what's the difference between a traditional IRA and a Roth IRA?
That's a great question, and you can always talk to your accountant on it, but simply the traditional IRA, you get a break when you put money into it. Like coming up here and probably, 4 or 5 weeks from now, since it's not April 15th, it's May 15th. A lot of times you'll go pick up your taxes or getting ready to, and your accountant will tell you, hey, if you put $6,000 in your traditional IRA, I'll be able to reduce the taxes and instead of having to pay $1,000, you'll get $1,000 back. So when you make a contribution towards your retirement plan, the government rewards you and doesn't tax you on that money. And they don't tax you on any of the money it makes up until the point you take it out. So let's say you put $6,000 in there. Let's say you're 50 years old. You put $6,000 or $7,000 in there for the next 10 years. You'll have $70,000. And let's say you made another $35,000 on there, so you'd have $105,000. Now, if you took that out at 60 years old, you'd pay tax on that $105,000. But you got a deduction for those 10 years that you put it in there. Now, if you did it with the Roth IRA and you put $7,000 in there, you would not have gotten a tax deduction in those 10 years. If you made $100,000 in your job and you put $7,000 in there, you'd be paying tax on $100,000. On the traditional IRA, if you put $7,000 in on your $100,000 job, you'd be paying tax on $93,000. But when you pull the money out of the Roth account, right, if you did that $7,000 for 10 years and made another $35,000, now you have $105,000, you're going to pull that $105,000 out, and it's going to be completely tax-free, and you put the $105,000 in your pocket. Whereas if you did it in the traditional, you'd probably be paying, 40%. So you would get about $60,000 back, or $65,000.
It's a great advantage.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people don't understand that. That's why I think it's a great question. And I obviously told you I'm a big fan and I'm biased towards the tax-free. So I like all the tax-free, especially if you make 12, 15, or 20% returns on your real estate.
Right. Well, I'm sure there's a lot of folks that may look at the self-directed options out there. I know there's solo 401ks. If you have a 401k, there's also, the various IRAs. What's sort of the biggest mistake that folks make getting into this, maybe without any knowledge?
Well, you do have to follow the rules. And you should talk to your accountant, and you should have your team built. I mean, especially you should do that even if you're in, real estate. You need to have the people that if you get into a problem, you have them to help you, whether it's engineers, lawyers, accountants, handymen, realtors, brokers, et cetera. You want to have your team built. So one of the things that happens, as an example, if you have a 401k and you take a distribution and they bring it to you, you can roll it over to CamaPlan. But what happens is they're going to take 20% out of that account. Let's say you're going to roll over 100,000. They're going to take 20,000 and give you 80. Whereas if you said transfer it directly to CamaPlan, they would do that and they wouldn't take the 20% out, and you'd have 100,000 in Cama. And, so doing that directly. And the second biggest thing that I see people doing is they want to buy a second home, or some people even want to buy a home to live in. And when you buy real estate or even notes, you can't do it where it's going to benefit yourself. So if you're going to buy a house, it has to be a rental home. It can't be a second home down the shore, or up in the mountains, or at the lake. It has to be a rental place that you're not going to use because they would say you'd be getting a benefit from your IRA.
Ah, I see.
So that's one of the biggest mistakes. And then the other one is, hey, I want to buy a house for my kid in college and I want to use my IRA funds. The problem is your kid's living there. He can't, he's a disqualified person. So there are rules and regulations that you have to watch for. But again, we have different educational courses on our website that'll help you do that. And feel free to call to one of our account executives and they'll go over the different questions for you or point you in the right direction on the website of what you can't do.
What's an example of a successful strategy that someone could use or that you've used utilizing your self-directed account?
Well, the one that I saw that was very well done was someone used their traditional IRA. They had a $500,000 in there. They bought a house for $350,000 back in 2010, I think it was, or 2009 or 10. And the house was listed at $550,000. They bought it for $350,000. Thought they had a good deal on it. They bought it in a traditional IRA. And then what they did is the value of the property kept dropping, and it went all the way down to $150,000.
Wow.
Yeah, not that you want to do that, but a lot of the successful people will take the lemons and turn them into lemonade.
Mm-hmm.
So what they did at that point is they converted that traditional house out of that traditional IRA into a Roth IRA. So now instead of paying taxes on $350,000 when they bought it, they paid taxes on $150,000. And actually what they did is they got a loan for $75,000, so they only paid the taxes on $75,000. And then in 2018, they sold the house, they paid off the loan, in 2015 or something with the rent. And then when they sold the house at $420,000, it was in a Roth IRA, so they had to pay no taxes on it. And to make it even better, they sold it and held the mortgage at 7% with a 5-year balloon.
Oh, gee, that's a great strategy, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was one of the success stories. And then there's other people that have, bought discounted notes, and they've paid back instead of, 10 years, they paid back in 1 or 2 years. So they made a lot of money on buying discounted notes. They bought face value of a $40,000 note, and they bought it for $10,000 from the bank. And it paid off 2 years later, so they got $40,000 for their $10,000 investment. So those are always nice, And of course, if the bank knew they were going to pay it off, they wouldn't have sold it. But it was a non-performing note, and at the time, because of the economy, I think the person had gotten cancer and lost his job, and they couldn't make their payments, and they were still living in the house, and the people that bought the note did a workout, and then it was paid off. So there's a lot of those success stories that are out there.
That's great. That's great. Well, our audience are folks generally 50 years of age and older. They're either approaching retirement or they're already in retirement. And, they're looking at all kinds of ways to sort of leverage their nest egg, or they also have an interest in real estate investment for tax benefits as well as just for the returns. What kind of advice would you have for those folks that that are kind of listening to this and saying, well, I don't have a self-directed IRA. What would you advise them in terms of getting involved there?
Well, I'm big on diversification, and I toe dipped into my first self-directed investment, and now I'm primarily, almost all self-directed at this point in my life. So what I would tell them is I would say, hey, go investigate it, try it out, see how you like it. There's, at least 20 different ways to do it based on what your skills are, what money you have, whether you have a 401k or an old one, or, you can roll over money from a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA. You can roll over a little bit or a lot. So I would say open up an account, try it out, see if it's something that you like. It's not as, I'll say it's not as easy as buying a stock or a bond from a broker. But when I could have control over my investments, and I knew who I was lending money to, and I knew who I was renting the house to. I felt very comfortable, and I liked the returns. I knew what the returns were before I got into them, and I try not to have any returns less than 15% at this point in time.
That's awesome. Now, a lot of people hear about checkbook control type of IRAs. Is that what you guys provide through your service? Because I remember I had IRA years ago, and I always had to fill out these forms, and then I had to fax it to them, and I mean it was always real tough just to make it a distribution. How do you guys handle that?
Well, anything with the government, there's a lot of paperwork that has to be done, and we've got to do the reporting just like Fidelity and Vanguard do reporting, and the banks, et cetera. So there is that little bit of a hassle, but obviously with the new technologies that are out of there and people working from home, it's gotten better than faxes. I don't know many people that have faxes anymore, but you do have, that is a pain in the neck. The checkbook IRA, I'm all for it with a 401k. I don't like them, and I don't recommend them for IRAs because I'm familiar with Swanson versus the IRS, and I understand that Mr. Swanson won the case, but the IRS defended it very poorly or prosecuted it very poorly. So I worry a little bit about that. And most of our, 98% of our stuff gets out within 48 hours of when the paperwork comes to us. And a lot of that is done within 24 hours. You can get a checkbook IRA. We have attorneys, or we know of attorneys that do them for our clients. I personally don't recommend them because I worry about the IRS coming back on them in the future. But solo 401ks, you can have a checkbook control, and they're better because of the different rules associated with them.
Got it.
So I hope that answered your question a little bit.
No, that did. Very good. Very good answer. Well, you've got this. You're an investor. I'm sure it sounds like you have a very diverse but robust portfolio. But you also have this business, CamaPlan. And what excites you about the future of either your plan or your investments? What's sort of your long game? What excites you about the future there?
Well, first of all, I love helping people. Right. And I think self-direction has made a big difference in my life. It's changed my lifestyle, when I figured that. And what it's really done is it's given me more time. I can make, the same amount of money in half the time if I don't have to deal with taxes. And I never thought that would be possible. So one is I want to continue with CamaPlan. My sister's there, she's 15 years younger than I am. I have one son that works in the business. So I would like the business to keep growing. We've grown it pretty much every single year that we've owned the company, with the exception of last year. It was about 20% off from the year before, but that was obviously with the COVID and us, not working and setting things up off site, I believe. So things are off to a good start this year. So CamaPlan, I believe, will keep working. I've kind of slowed down on buying real estate. I said I wouldn't buy any real estate 5 years ago, and I bought 6 places in that last 5 years. I can't keep money in the bank making 0.5%. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It just doesn't equate to me. And I look at all the other investments out there, and I always fall back on real estate or real estate related notes. I'll buy tax liens or mortgages or lend money, on certain aspects. But if, I run into a great deal, I'll do that. My kids will, have done flipping of houses. So, so I'm going to spend more time with my kids and my grandkids, and I'm going to help them do direction and, even more in the future for their future and
great.
their kids. So
I love
that's
it.
basically where I am. And then I'm going to do some fishing and enjoying, life.
I love it. I love it.
I'm not going down to Haiti though.
Why
And
not?
starting, yeah, right. I mean, I'll go down with you as a guide, but
Yeah, no, it's pretty,
it seemed like a lot of work, that story.
yeah, it's definitely, and it's tough there. I mean, it's definitely tough. It's gotten tougher since we left, but we're still, we're still actively involved. It got a little bit old to be able to, deal with the day-to-day stuff there. So, but we still love the people there. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, this is our sort of our what we call our wrap it up session. Now, this is where I ask you kind of like a lightning round here of quick questions. You share resources that have been of value to you and our listeners. And so, if you are ready, we can go ahead and wrap it up.
Sure, go ahead.
All right. Favorite real estate book?
Think and Grow Rich.
All right, that's a good one. We get that one a lot. That's a great one. How about just a favorite sort of general business book?
Well, the one that saved me a lot of money was Keep It by Joe Luby. And that taught me different ways to convert from traditional IRAs to Roth with different asset classes. So that saved $20 read saved me probably 50 grand.
Wow, that's great.
It was.
Never heard of that one. That sounds fantastic. Yeah. How about do you have a website that you go to on a regular basis that helps you in your business?
Well, quite frankly, my favorite website is Amazon.com. And I really used it this last year.
Oh, sure. No, well, a lot of people didn't have a choice. They're stuck in their houses too. And we had to order everything through Amazon, it seemed like, during that the COVID especially.
Yep. And you can have them delivered to the houses and everything else.
Oh,
when somebody
yeah.
does that. Yeah.
It's great.
The pool cleaner goes out, Amazon, send it.
You got it.
Yeah.
Do you have apps on your phone, like a favorite app that you use on your phone?
I tell you what I have, like I use the Bigger Pockets app.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I love Bigger Pockets.
On my phone because you can get a lot of advice from people that are in the business and not just tire kickers.
Yeah, that's I love it. One of my favorite sites. How about a favorite quote?
Early to bed, early to rise will make you healthy, wealthy, and wise.
All right, Ben Franklin, one of my favorites. That's great. And this last question here is, one again for those that are creative folks, and you sound like you're very creative in your investing. But if you lost absolutely everything, all your assets, and you had to start over, knowing what you already know, and you only had $1,000 in cash, what would you do with that $1,000 to relaunch your real estate investing business?
I would go out to my network and I would see what opportunities were available, because I don't care whatever thing you think you've done in the past, everything changes. There is no set it and forget it that I've found, because of laws and technology, statutes, taxes, etc. All of those things change. So I would go out and see what opportunities were available through my network, and then I would seize one that would, jumpstart me into the next investment phase that I'd go to. I don't know if that's exactly clear to everybody.
That makes sense. Well, I think as you go to your network, generally, be sitting down with somebody having a cup of coffee or maybe lunch or something. And from that, you'd be drawing information that would give you more info on how to grow your real estate business. So that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. There's opportunities out there every single day. I have to turn them down because I just don't have the time to look at all of them. So you want to look at things and spend them where you're going to spend your best time, change your thinking. Right. Yeah.
Good point. Well, I'm sure there's a lot of folks listening here that would love to find out more about your company and what you do. What's the best way for folks to get that information?
I like them to look at our website, CamaPlan, CamaPlan.com, because they can get a lot of information. They can read it. They can set up a phone call with us. They can set up an appointment on their time so that we can call them back. Whatever they choose, or they can read and peruse the website. We've got videos, educational videos up there, and everything is basically free. And so that's what I'd like for them to do. And they can call our office at 215-283-2868, 215-283-2868, or shoot us an email at info@CamaPlan.com.
Excellent. Well, we have a tradition here on the show. We're called, the Old Dogs REI Network here. So we like all our guests to close us out with their best old hound dog howl. You think you can do that for us?
Well, I didn't know if it was going to be a howl or a bark, but ow, ow, ow! Whoa, whoa.
You got a little of both in there. I love it. That was great, Carl. Man, it's been great having you on the show. Thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
All right, great. Thank you. I appreciate you having me on there, Bill. And if you do go back to Haiti, let me know when you're going. And I may take a trip with you, because it sounds like you know your way around.
Oh, you bet. Hey, and I always stop in Florida, so it'd be right there, and right there you can just jump on the plane with me.
Gotcha. Sounds good.
I could probably take you up on that. Oh, great.
All righty.
I also want to thank our old dog listeners out there, too, for joining us. I know there's a lot of other things you could be doing right now, but the fact that you've taken the time to join us means a lot, and we really appreciate it. Please note, everything Carl talked about today will be outlined in detail in our show notes on the Old Dogs website at olddogsreinetwork.com/blog. And you're going to look for the episode with Carl Fischer. Well, that's the show for today. Remember, cash flow is king and real estate investing the means. Until next time, keep moving forward and may God bless.
Thank you very much for visiting the Old Dogs REI Network. We would greatly appreciate if you would stop by iTunes and let us know what you think of the show. We would love if you could subscribe to the podcast, give us a 5-star rating, and write a review. The more ratings and reviews we receive, the more visible the podcast will be to others. Thank you.